buckle up, folks, because today we're going deep on something pretty out there.
Yeah.
A sermon with a very pointed title.
Yeah, what was it again?
Watch this before you vote.
Catchy.
Yeah, not exactly subtle.
Not at all, and you don't see a sermon like this every Sunday, that's for sure.
Right.
I mean, it gets pretty political, bringing up ancient Canaanite practices and then trying to link them to modern-day fraternities and sororities with this whole election thing looming in the background.
Definitely an interesting mix of, like,
Totally.
history, religion, politics.
That one there. So, what we're going to try to do in this deep dive is unpack some of the claims the speaker makes and look at, like the cultural context.
For sure.
But, like, without taking sides or anything.
Right.
Just trying to see what's going on here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're putting on our cultural detective hats. Right.
Okay.
Trying to figure out what this sermon tells us about, well, the people behind it. Okay, so let's start by going way, way back in time.
Okay.
The speaker paints this kind of intense picture of ancient Canaanite practices, like demon worship, child sacrifice,
Oh, wow.
witchcraft, all the big ones.
They even suggest these practices, like, spread with the Canaanites, right? As they, became the Phoenicians and then influenced the Venetians.
Hold on. So are they saying, like, the ghosts of ancient Canaanites are haunting college campuses now?
Yeah, well, they're building this narrative of this ancient, what they call pagan influence that keeps popping up, throughout history. They even mention this book, The Two Babylons, that talks about this.
Ah, interesting.
It gets pretty wild.
Yeah, that's quite a leap.
It is.
Okay, so to justify all this, the speaker brings in the Bible. Right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Talking about those passages where God told the Israelites to stay away from all the Canaanite stuff.
It's like setting up this...
It's like good versus evil.
Total good versus evil thing.
Okay.
With the Canaanites representing, well, everything they see as wrong in their view of the world.
So it's like an us versus them kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
But how do they connect that ancient history to, what's going on today?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
They use the story of the Canaanite woman who asks Jesus to heal her daughter.
Oh, yeah. The one where the daughter's possessed by a demon.
That's the one.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That's a good one.
And Jesus is kind of hesitant to help at first, right?
Exactly. And that's where the speaker really leans in.
Yeah.
They argue that Jesus was hesitant because of the woman's heritage, being Canaanite.
Really?
They even quote that verse about Canaanites being servants of servants.
Okay.
As if to say, Jesus didn't have to help someone like that.
So are they saying Jesus discriminated against her because of her heritage?
It's a pretty controversial take, for sure.
No kidding.
It really shows how the speaker's interpreting the Bible, through their own very specific lens. Then they go on to say that the woman recognized Jesus as the root of Jesse.
Okay.
Implying she understood his power over the demonic forces associated with her Canaanite heritage.
Interesting.
Almost like they're saying even the Canaanites knew, this belief system was superior.
Okay, so they've set up this whole ancient good versus evil battle.
Right.
But where do fraternities and sororities fit in?
Well, this is where the sermon takes a sharp turn.
Oh, boy.
The speaker argues that people today, you and me, can actually become Canaanites.
What?
By doing certain rituals and practices.
Really?
And guess what? They think Greek organizations are the modern version of those rituals.
You're kidding. So pledging a fraternity is like what? Making a deal with the Canaanite gods?
That's basically what they're saying.
That's wild.
It is.
Okay.
I make this really weird comparison between becoming a quote-unquote Canaanite and becoming a descendant of Abraham. Both, they say, happen because of specific actions.
Like
rituals for the Canaanites.
Okay.
Accepting Jesus for, Abraham's descendants.
So they're saying joining a fraternity is like rejecting Christianity.
It's pretty out there, right?
Yeah.
But that's their argument.
I bet there's a warning that comes with that.
Oh, you bet there is.
Okay, lay it on me.
They warn against doing both the Canaanite practices,
Like with fraternities and sororities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the Christian practices.
So you have to pick a side.
They say it's like eating from two tables, which will bring divine judgment.
No mixing and matching.
Nope, you got to choose.
Okay, but why focus on Greek organizations specifically? What's the deal there?
Well, they link them to, like, Greek philosophy and dog-like worship. They basically demonize anything Greek, you know?
Okay.
But remember, this isn't just some history lesson or religious lecture.
Right. All about the election.
Ah, so this is where it gets political.
Yeah.
They're trying to, like, tell people who to vote for.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
They even say American pulpits. You know, the churches have been infiltrated by people into Greek mythology and the occult, labeling them warlocks dressed as pastors.
Okay, hold up.
I know, right?
Warlocks dressed as pastors.
Oh.
This is getting kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's straight out of a Dan Brown novel or something.
Yeah.
But it's all meant to create this, you know, fear and distrust even among religious folks.
So they're basically saying, don't trust your pastor. They might be evil.
Pretty much.
That's pretty intense.
It is.
So if I'm getting this right, they're demonizing Greek culture, trying to tie it to modern groups and even politicians.
Yep.
And using all of that to sway the election?
That's the gist of it.
Man, this is wild.
And it gets even crazier, trust me.
Well, I'm definitely hooked. This deep dive is getting good.
Let's take a break here and we'll pick this back up in part 2. You know what's really crazy about this sermon?
What's that?
It's how they just mash together all these, like, random things.
Like what?
Ancient Canaanites, Greek mythology, then bam, modern-day politicians.
It is kind of all over the place.
It's like a conspiracy theory, right?
Yeah, it's like they're connecting the dots across, like, centuries.
Totally.
It's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
But with, you know, ancient rituals and politicians.
Exactly. And the thing that ties it all together is this idea of, like, spiritual warfare.
Okay.
This, you know, big battle between good and evil that they think is happening right now in politics.
So, like, the election isn't just about picking a leader.
Nope.
It's about, like, choosing a side in this cosmic war.
That's how they see it.
So if you join a frat or sorority, you're basically on the dark side.
Pretty much, yeah.
That seems a little extreme, don't you think?
Well, that's their whole narrative, right? And for people who already see the world as, you know, black and white, it's a pretty convincing message.
I guess so.
It plays on those deep fears, you know?
Right, right.
Good versus evil, right versus wrong.
I remember how they used that story of the Canaanite woman and Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they're twisting it to fit their message.
For sure. I mean, traditionally, that story's seen as about faith and, you know, the universality of God's love.
Right.
But here it's used to say that some groups are just inherently other.
Like dangerous.
Potentially dangerous.
It's like saying, see, even Jesus was suspicious of these people.
Exactly.
So they're making a scapegoat, blaming everything on this other group.
Right.
Which they conveniently connect to, like ancient pagan stuff.
It's a classic tactic when you think about it.
It is, yeah.
And it's not just about specific rituals or anything.
Okay.
It's a whole worldview they see as the enemy.
Like their way is the only right way.
Yeah. And anyone who doesn't agree is a threat.
Which is where the Greek mythology thing comes in, I guess.
Exactly.
They're not just going after frats and sororities because of some rituals.
Right.
They see them as, like, representing this dangerous cultural influence.
Think about it. Greek philosophy, mythology, they've always been tied to secularism, humanism, even hedonism.
Stuff that challenges traditional religion.
Exactly. So by connecting these groups to Greek culture, they're tapping into this, you know, long history of suspicion.
So it's like, if you like Greek culture, you're rejecting our values.
Pretty much.
And they apply that same logic to, you know, the political stuff.
Yeah.
Saying certain candidates are part of this pagan threat.
Exactly. They're saying, if you vote for this person, you're siding with the forces of darkness.
Yeah. It's pretty heavy stuff.
It is, especially if you see the world that way, you know, the spiritual warfare.
And what about that whole warlocks dressed as pastors line?
Oh, yeah.
That's not just about politicians, right?
No, it's about making people distrust their own community.
Like creating paranoia.
Exactly. The enemy is everywhere, even in your own church.
It is like a thriller. Kind of creepy.
It is.
But seriously, what's behind all this? Seems pretty extreme, even for a political sermon.
Well, you got to remember, this isn't happening in a vacuum, right?
Okay.
It reflects how a lot of people are feeling right now.
What?
Anxious, uncertain.
About the election.
About everything. Think about all the changes happening.
Yeah, things are moving fast.
Technology, social norms, politics. It's overwhelming for some people.
So they want easy answers.
Yeah, they want solutions.
And this sermon gives them that.
It does.
It says, here's the problem, here's the enemy, here's what to do.
And it's said with, you know, conviction, authority.
Right.
So for some people, it really hits home.
Yeah.
It matches their own fears and anxieties.
But what about people who don't see things so black and white.
Ah, that's the tough part.
The ones who see shades of gray.
This kind of rhetoric can really divide people.
Us versus them.
Exactly. It can lead to intolerance, prejudice.
Or even violence.
It can happen.
It's like you're either with us or against us.
And that has real consequences.
Yeah, it can affect relationships, communities.
How people vote.
It creates this climate of fear.
Where people are afraid to speak up.
So what do we do? How do we deal with these ideas without getting sucked in?
Well, first off, think critically.
Okay.
Don't just believe everything you hear.
Do your own research.
Yeah, question the sources, look for evidence.
Like a detective.
Exactly.
Gather all the facts.
Right, and don't be afraid to talk to people who think differently.
Yeah, even if we disagree.
Listen to them. Try to understand their point of view.
And share your own.
Exactly. It's about understanding, not winning an argument.
What if it turns into a fight?
It can happen, but try to stay calm, stay respectful.
Focus on the issues.
Not the person. You won't change everyone's mind.
Right. And that's okay.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is find common ground.
Even if you disagree on the big stuff.
Exactly. Maybe you both agree on education or healthcare.
Yeah, even if you differ on the specifics.
By focusing on that shared ground.
You can build trust.
Exactly. And have more productive conversations later on.
This sermon has really made us think, huh?
It has.
It reminds us that the world is complicated.
Yeah.
People have different beliefs.
And it's up to us to handle those differences with,
with respect.
compassion.
It's a reminder that we all play a part in shaping society.
We can choose to spread division and fear.
Or we can build bridges and understanding.
Exactly.
I know what side I'm on.
Me too. And hopefully this deep dive has given you, the listener, something to think about.
It's not about who's right or wrong.
It's about finding a way to live together.
Even when we disagree.
Peacefully, productively.
That's something worth fighting for.
It is.
Okay, so we've spent like 2 whole parts breaking down this sermon.
Yeah.
We've talked about ancient Canaanites and
Yeah.
Greek mythology, even, warlocks dressed as pastors.
It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, but what does it all mean for the average person,
That's the big question,
Oh.
right?
listening to this?
We've gone deep on the speaker's view,
Right.
but now we got to zoom out.
See the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Because let's be real, not everyone's going to buy into this whole spiritual warfare thing.
Totally.
Right.
You got to think about the whole cultural context,
All right.
We live in a time where people are just bombarded with information.
Yeah, it's like overload from every direction.
And everything's changing so fast.
It's constant uncertainty.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that people want easy answers.
They want solutions.
Simple solutions.
And this sermon gives them that.
It does. It's like
a roadmap.
here's the problem, here's the bad guy, here's how to fight back.
It's powerful stuff.
Especially when it's said with, that kind of authority.
Yeah.
So for some people, it just clicks,
Mhm.
It fits with their own worries and fears. But what about the people who don't see things that way?
That's the tricky part.
Who see shades of gray, not just black and white?
This kind of talk, it can be really divisive.
Yeah, it creates that us versus them thing.
Exactly.
Which can lead to bad stuff. Like
intolerance,
largeness,
even violence.
It's like drawing a line.
And saying, you're either on this side or that side.
And that has real consequences.
Absolutely.
Think about how this affects people.
Yeah.
Their relationships, their communities.
How they vote.
It creates this atmosphere of fear.
Where people are afraid to speak their minds.
So how do we deal with this? How do we even talk about these ideas without, getting dragged down?
Well, first off, we got to think critically.
Right.
Don't just believe everything you hear.
Question everything.
Yeah, check the sources. Look for proof.
Be like a detective.
Exactly.
Gather the evidence.
Right, and don't be afraid to talk to people who see things differently.
Even if you disagree.
Listen to them, try to see their point of view.
And share your own.
Exactly.
What if it turns into an argument?
It might.
How do you stay calm?
It's tough, but try to stay respectful. Focus on the issue.
Not the person.
You're not going to change everyone's mind.
Right.
And that's okay.
So it's more about understanding each other.
Yeah, than winning.
Than winning the argument.
Sometimes the best thing is to find common ground.
Even if you disagree on the big stuff.
Yeah, maybe you both care about education.
Healthcare.
Even if you have different ideas about how to get there.
You can at least agree on the goal.
By focusing on those things you agree on,
you can build trust.
Have better conversations later.
This sermon, it's really given us a lot to think about.
It has.
It shows us the world's complicated.
People have different beliefs.
And it's on us to figure out how to navigate that,
With respect.
Compassion.
We all have a part in shaping the world.
We can choose to spread division,
Fear.
or we can build bridges.
Understanding.
I know what I choose.
Me too. And hopefully this deep dive gave you, the listener, something to think about.
Because it's not about who's right or wrong.
It's about finding a way to live together.
Even when we disagree.
'Cause
Productively.
Go.
That's what really matters.
That's a goal worth working towards.